squared to write the quadratic function f of x is equal to 2x squared plus 12x plus 7 in standard form and identify the vertex. So we'll begin with f of x is equal to 2x squared plus 12x plus 7. And I want to recall what is standard form. Standard form of a quadratic function is f of x is equal to a times x minus h squared plus k. And so I want to take the function f of x is equal to 2x squared plus 12x plus 7 and rewrite it in this form. In this particular function, the leading coefficient is not 1. So I'm going to focus here on the first two terms, and I'm going to factor out the leading coefficient from the first two terms. So that is, I'm going to factor out a 2 from the first two terms. And if I do that, then I have 2 times the quantity x squared plus 6x, and I'm going to deliberately leave some space here, and I'm going to come back and address that in a minute. And then I'm going to close the square bracket, and I'm going to put this plus 7 down here outside of the square bracket. So inside the square bracket, we are left with x squared plus 6x. And I can check and make sure that my factorization of 2 is correct. 2 times x squared is 2x squared. 2 times 6x is 12x. Now what I want to do is I want to complete the square within the square brackets. So I'm going to look at the linear term, and the linear term here is the 6x. And I'm going to use the 6 to complete the square. So I'm going to take half of that linear coefficient, that is half of 6, or if you like, you could write this as 6 over 1, and whatever that value is, then I'm going to square that number. And so half of 6 is 3, and 3 squared is 9. So I'm going to write plus 9 as well as minus 9. This is a function. I don't want to change the function. So if I add and subtract 9, then the net change is 0. Now, what I would like to remain inside the parentheses or the square brackets is the perfect square trinomial. The perfect square trinomial is the x squared plus 6x plus 9. So I'd like these three terms to remain inside the parentheses. I want the minus 9 to come outside. So what I can do is I can rewrite this as 2 times x squared plus 6x plus 9, and then bring this minus 9 outside of the square brackets, but keeping in mind that every term inside the square brackets is being multiplied by this 2. So in order for this to come outside of the square brackets, I need to multiply 2 times a negative 9, and that is a negative 18. And so now that is outside of the square brackets, and I'm going to bring down this plus 7. So what we're left with inside the square brackets is a perfect square trinomial. X squared plus 6x plus 9. And that will factor nicely. This factors into x times x is x squared. 3 times 3 is 9. And since our sign here is positive, I'll write plus in both of the binomials. Now I can condense the way I write this, and I can write it as x plus 3 squared. So I'm going to rewrite the function here as 2 times the quantity x plus 3 squared, and then these two numbers outside of the square brackets, I'm going to go ahead and add those. A negative 18 and a positive 7 will give us a negative 11. So we have the function f of x is equal to 2 times x plus 3 squared minus 11. And that is our function in standard form. From here, I'd like to identify the vertex. So this parabola has been shifted 3 units to the left, or to negative 3, and down 11 units. So the vertex of the parabola is negative 3, negative 11, indicated by the x plus 3, that's 3 units to the left or in the negative direction, 11 units down. The vertex is negative 3, negative 11. And we've used completing the square to rewrite the function f of x is equal to 2x squared plus 12x plus 7 in standard form, and then we identified the vertex.